I tried getting your eyes extracted separate by doing split to parts and it wasn't working. But you do have polygroups, so I'm going to Control Shift click on the eyes, which will hide them. And then if you go under geometry, modify topology, you can delete hidden. We got the little subdiv, so I'm going to delete hidden. And then I can get rid of those. I don't really need the eyes right now, and I like to be able to hide those separate from the character. So as I'm modeling, I'm not kind of screwing up the eyes. And so we'll just make those again later on. And then I would say the topology right now isn't necessarily something that you're going to use for the final topology. So you might just want to go back to a Dynamesh, and that way you're working with nice, even polygons across the entire thing. So to do that, I would go to your highest level, delete lower, and now this is kind of all that you have. So then you can go under Dynamesh, and let's just start with maybe 200, see what that gives us. Blur I'm going to turn off, project on, that's fine. Dynamesh, maybe a little low res, so I just undid it. Let's try to go a little higher here. Yeah, that should be good. Also, you will notice that it filled those holes, which Dynamesh is going to want. So I would just, after you turn on symmetry, you can mask off kind of where that eye area is going to be. Invert that mask, and then just pull that in, and that's good enough right now for what's going to be our eye bag, or where the eyes are going to be. So I'll just clear that mask, and then I'll read Dynamesh. It should give me, yeah, more even topology across that. Just kind of smoothing. Oh, Dynamesh got turned off, it looks like. So we'll turn that back on, read Dynamesh, and we're good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the front view. I'm going to turn my model opacity lower, and with move topological or move selected, I just want to make sure I'm hitting some of those key features. So that looks pretty good. The chin, you can see, was just angled down there a little bit, so I want to make sure I hit that. The eyes look like they're smaller, potentially, than what you have. So just kind of line up that eye shape. A little bit better. And then let's jump to the side view. And it looks like the front and the side views don't necessarily line up. So it's going to be somewhat a bit more difficult to follow this, but I want to at least make sure I'm getting a little bit closer to that silhouette. I'm just watching the hairline. I want to stay inside of the hairline. The ear is going to be a little bit smaller. Just kind of make sure I'm following where that's at. I'll jump back to the front view, check out the eyes, check out the hair. Okay, and then I can turn my model opacity all the way back up. And I can start sculpting with some of this and trying to think about, where the forms are going to be located. So I'll always look along my silhouette and I see kind of some weird shapes up this way. So I'm going to just kind of smooth along that silhouette. And let's just take the reference out of the back by doing that. Of ZBrush, but then there's other reference which I consider more supporting reference, and I would just have that stuff off to the side when I'm working. So I'm on a Cintiq right now, so I have a pretty big monitor in front of me, and it allows me to have, a little bit of reference on the side here, and then my reference over here. Okay, so her lips are pretty thin here, so we may not want to go as thick as this. We'll play with it. We see just a little lip line in these areas. The nose, we can probably get something similar to this, maybe make it a little bit more of a button nose. And then we'll follow this eye shape, but we'll treat the shapes around the nose, the cheeks, and all of that similar. Now feels like she's puffing out her cheeks somewhat, so we're going to want to kind of keep that in mind as we're sculpting this. And I'm going to use the move brush. I'm going to use Damien Standard. I'm going to use clay tubes to kind of get this stuff into place. So I can see her default smile kind of goes from eye to eye. So it would be right, maybe about there. Her default cheeks, see how they kind of arc down right here? So I would want to try to bring that line going down. And then she seems like she has pretty kind of rounder, fuller cheeks if we look at all these angles right here. So I'm going to use either the move brush or clay tubes, and I'm just kind of pulling out to make these cheeks rounder, and then I can also, smooth back a bit. It's going to be important to kind of keep these shapes really smooth. You can see the nose angles out, kind of like she would have those nostrils right there. So I'm going to angle that out a little bit. And then from the side view, it's actually looking pretty good. I'm going to use the Damien Standard and the Dam Standard to kind of get a little bit of an indication of where that nostril would be. So kind of just giving her a cute little button nose right there. And I can see a nostril right there, so we will push in for where that nostril hole would be. So we can kind of just push in, get something started, just kind of little seed shape. And I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh right there. I want to get a better kind of smile line coming through here. So just kind of dig in, that'll go up there, and then we'll somewhat smooth back. And then we'll go to the other side where it's the cheeks, and we'll smooth that back a bit. So I don't need that line to be overly exaggerated. I'm pushing in with the Damien Standard for that line to change the angle between the mouth and the cheeks, and just kind of start to push that shape in there. Same thing along the eyelids. I'm going to keep the eyelids fairly close to her eyes, which is pretty much what you had before. We just need to make sure now that we Dynamesh this that we're adding it back in. Okay. And I want to get a difference between where her actual cheeks are and where her eyes are. So I'm going to push that down, go back to my move brush, and you may even want to, with a smaller brush, come in and mask this area because I don't want to move that lower eyelid at all. For that matter, we could just mask the whole eye since we know we're going to be kind of working around that area. And now when we use the move tool, I'm not going to be really touching the eye at all. Just filling out that cheek more. And I'm looking at this at multiple angles, trying to think of kind of those doll-like shapes. Now at this angle, the cheeks feel like they're coming out too far, so I'm just holding down Shift, and I'm just smoothing along that silhouette. And looking down here, and we have a pretty nice round muzzle shape for those lips. I'm going to exaggerate it just a little bit more. Just kind of tuck that nostril in a little bit through here, bringing in where that smile line's going to be, and then I can smooth back. This we maybe don't want to dip in as much. Pull that out a little bit, and then just smooth it back. Like I said, I think her lips can be a little bit more thinner to match a little bit what's going on here. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to smooth back here, get a thinner lower lip there. And just a slightly thinner upper lip. Maybe go in with the Damien Standard for that center line. Just cut that out a little bit more. And then read Dynamesh. I'm just going to kind of round and smooth these sides. I saw a flat portion there. There's a little bit of a divot or a dimple right there that I want smoothed out. So I'm just kind of looking for imperfections at this point, thinking about the entire shape of the head. Now the ears are kind of coming off at a somewhat odd angle, so I'm looking between the side view and the front view, and again those don't really match, but I want to get that round shape to the top of the ear, and then we do want them to kind of stick out to the side like we're seeing in the reference. So I'm going to go back to my move brush. I'm going to get that rounded top. The bottom looks like it's maybe just a little bit higher, and then ears would kind of tuck in here. So I'm going to bring all that in a little bit more. Bring some of this forward a bit. Go back to the Damien Standard. Just kind of cut in a bit where this ear is going to meet up with the head. I could use clay tubes at this point for some of this. So clay tubes, Alt is held down to push in. And then her neck feels a little bit thicker than what you have. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping everything in mind here. So I'm going to work on the jawline. I'm going to work on how the back of the skull tapers in by the ear. And then I'm going to work on the neck a bit. So notice I'm working through the entire character to kind of bring it together to match that reference a little bit closer, get some more appealing shapes out of it. But you can see you're pretty close to the reference because it's only taking me a little bit of work, and we're getting some really nice shapes out of it. So I think once you start focusing more just solely on the bust here, it's going to be better for you. So I'm going to go ahead, pull that down. Now at some point this got crunched a little bit. You don't have perfect symmetry here. So what you could do is go to Modify Topology, have X selected, Mirror and Weld, and you can see that brings symmetry back to the model. I'm just going to kind of thicken that neck up slightly. Look at the shape all around. That's pretty good. I'm going to go back to clay tubes because I want kind of the back of the skull here to taper more into the neck. So even though she's a cartoon character, she does, she has a skull, and we want to make sure that kind of tapers into the neck, flows by the jawline, ear, that all kind of makes sense. Where an appearance has a nice flow between those shapes. Now, I'd find some different examples of ears than what we're seeing up in the top left here. So maybe look at some Disney or Pixar type ears. But I'm going to keep it pretty simple here and just push in for the ears. And we're really going to not have any real anatomy inside there. I'm just going to kind of get the shape of what the helix would be and maybe just drop it a little bit where that eardrum would be. We can kind of play with that shape a little bit. Just re-dynamesh there to even out the topology or parameterization in the ear. So all this is not blending that well between the ear, the jaw, the cheeks, and the skull. So the ear itself is starting to look pretty good, but I'd want to kind of bring that all together at this 3/4. I don't want to see, all those kind of lumps that are happening through there. So I'm just going to kind of smooth some of this out and see where the shape goes as I'm smoothing it. Might have to turn a couple times. I was thinking I'm going to want to bring maybe the head in a little bit through here. I'm going to want to continue to smooth through there. want a better break between that jawline and the earlobe, so I'm going to come through here with Damien Standard, just cut through a little bit more, and then instantly redynamesh, because it's now going to follow the flow of those new cuts that I just added. And then I can smooth back. And what I want is a nice line coming off that ear to where her jaw is going to be. So I just redynameshed, smoothed. I'm starting to get a little bit nicer of a break between her ear and that jawline. Just going to move that earlobe in a bit, so I'm getting this nice line between the earlobe and the jaw there. So the only thing I'm not liking is the shadow that's kind of coming up and how straight this silhouette is back here. So I'm going to push in a little bit more there and then smooth and look at that shadow again. Now I'm getting a silhouette that tapers and rounds in a bit, so I'm liking that a bit more. And I'm trying to smooth out. I was losing a little bit of the ear down here. I just want to smooth that up there. Even add just a little bit of clay tubes through there and smooth that back in. There we go. Cool. Now what I would do from here is just go around and examine the silhouette. I don't like how I'm losing the eyelids through here. I'm seeing the side, but I'm not seeing kind of an eyebrow shape through here. So this I'd want to push out more and get a better silhouette read off of that. So I'm just adding some volume through here. And then I'm going to smooth it into everything. So I'm looking at silhouette, and that's what caused me to make this kind of judgment call of adding more volume there. And I like that a little bit better. I think I can add some more volume up here. Smooth it in. Add some more volume up here. Smooth it in. I'm just kind of getting rid of little lumps and bumps when I'm doing that. But that silhouette's reading a lot nicer now. I would still push it further, but you see how there's no detail right here. Oh, I just lost my undo history. So that's why I came back, because this is too flat. I came back here and started adding clay through there and just smooth it. Add clay to get rid of that divot and smooth it. Clay, smooth. So I lost that edge. You can see some of these things went back to before. But that's kind of how I take this character. And then I take another pass on refining the eyes, and then actually put some new spheres in there to follow. But let's try to get to where I am here today for you, and then I think tomorrow we can concentrate on just refining this and do a little bit of her cloth as far as the hood down here. Okay?